There are also a number of issues the KPRC 2 Investigates team will be tracking this session, looking for answers and accountability for you.
KPRC 2 investigator Mario Diaz is also live in Austin covering the start of the session for us. So Mario, the reliability of the power grid has to be one of the biggest questions that folks have, especially coming off the February 2021 freeze and even our Arctic weather this past Christmas.
That's right, Andy. It is without a doubt one of the biggest issues. In fact, I just spoke to this guy about it a few minutes ago. Hey, Senator, how you doing? Take care. About the power grid and about property taxes. Let me just first, though, give you some flavor here. We're in the Senate side of the Capitol. Let me give you some flavor here because we're still about 20 minutes away from swearing in. They're going to be doing it right here. We're going to keep the shot open here really fast. This is the Senate chamber. You can see they're going to open it up there. That's where they're going to be doing the swearing in of the Texas senators here at high noon. The House will be doing its swearing in on the other side of the Capitol. And of course, they're going to be getting to work, but not right away on the issues that you're talking about, Andy, because today is the swearing in process. Next Wednesday is when the governor will be, or next week, I should say, is when the governor will be sworn in. And that's officially when people will start to really get to work up here at the Capitol. So some of the key legislation that's going to be worked on that we discussed is the grid. I think everyone is in agreement on that from people I've been talking to on both sides of the aisle. They realize the grid is significant because no one wants to see the failure that we saw 2 years ago. Now, we did see the grid hold well during the Christmas break there when we had the freezes dump down again into the teens. But I'm hearing, again, from both sides here, that more work needs to be done. How does that happen? Well, according to one senator I spoke to on the Republican side, they said we need to have more energy generation here in the state of Texas to help protect us. On the Democratic side, they're like, we just need to get it fixed. We know there's the issue. We tried to address it in the past. We have the ability now to really go in there and get legislation done that will bolster the state's grid system, because if that goes down, the entire state goes down. And that's the issue that they feel impacts the state greater than any other at this moment. Keep in mind, you're looking at a legislative session in which just yesterday the state controller announced that they have $188 million in revenue from the last biennium. Big word, but that means the last 2 years, okay? So they have this incredible windfall of revenue of $188 million, and on top of that, you have a $32 billion surplus from the previous 2 years that they're now looking at and saying, hey, what are we gonna do with this extra money? And that's where you're gonna see the issue of the grid, taking some of that money and pushing it into that particular issue of bolstering the grid. And that is something, again, that every person I have spoken to here in the Capitol yesterday as well as this morning, I've spoken to insiders as well as elected officials. They're all saying that is a primary issue that needs to get addressed properly over the course of this cycle.
All right, Mario Diaz live for us inside of our state Capitol building. Certainly a lot to cover, and a lot of attention during the 88th session is going to be focused on the energy here in the state.
That's right. Mario, thank you.
And then,
go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
I was going to just say, I was going to add, no, that's okay. I was going to add that the other issue, and I was expecting that we might go into the property tax, and I think we have that time here. We're going to talk about property tax also, because I mentioned that $32 billion windfall that they have with regards to the controller that they announced yesterday, the surplus. They're expecting that to go into property tax relief. That is the other issue that I see both sides discussing. But keep in mind, this is politics. You have one side of the aisle and you have the other. And what we have seen here in recent years nationwide are the parties going further apart. So I spoke to two senators from our area, Senator Boris Miles from the 13th District and Senator Paul Bencourt. We're going to start with Boris Miles, and I'm just talking to him specifically about the two sides working together and finding common ground. Here's what Senator Miles had to say. Both sides are divided. Yeah. I was talking with someone last night about this, talking about specifically where do we stand as a legislature in terms of the two parties from a decade ago. He said we're much further apart. Yeah. Your assessment?
I would agree with whoever told you that. We're much further apart. There used to be a time we can come in this building and agree to disagree, and we did that and kept the ball moving. Now, with democracy being taken out of the process and more of a dictatorship environment in here, it makes it hard, very hard, to sit down with my counterparts on the other side of the aisle and negotiate and work things out for the betterment of both our communities.
Senator, those are strong words. You just said a dictatorship.
It's very much like a dictatorship feel around here.
How is common ground found?
Common ground is found by understanding that we're all human beings, that just like some of my Republican colleagues have to go back and answer to their constituents, we would like to bring something back to our Democratic constituents. You know, the have and the have-nots, not just in the state, but in this country, is getting wider and wider, Mario. And we've got to find a way to slow that down and bring it back together.
And that there from Senator Boris Miles. We now want to go to the other side of the aisle. A few minutes after that, I spoke with Senator Paul Betancourt about the very same topic. Here's what he had to say. In the Senate side of the Capitol now with Senator Paul Betancourt, democracy. Both sides are further apart than ever. It's not just here, but it's in the rest of the nation. How do you guys come together for this session?
Well, the Texas Senate is a place that actually works together. We still eat lunch in the same lunchroom. We talk to each other. We pass mostly nonpartisan bills, property tax relief, et cetera. So we can get things done when everything is a logjam in Washington. The Texas Senate can still operate.
But the House obviously is a divided place. You're in the Senate, but how does it, the overall scope, because you do intermix with House representatives, how does the overall atmosphere here come closer together to help benefit Texans?
Well, look, it's just like the two propositions the public voted on in May for property tax relief. They passed 85, 87%, and actually those bills passed unanimously in both the House and the Senate. So when you have the right public policy, you can get unanimous votes in the Texas legislature. They may not happen federally, but it does happen here in Texas.
So from what I'm hearing is that if it's a policy that impacts folks in Clear Lake or in Spring or on the east side of the city, in the 5th Ward, if everyone's on board, those are the type of bills that you find more compromise with than you do with the others.
Sure, Acres Home to River Oaks, however you want to just express it, when you're doing real things for real people like property tax relief, I get a lot of support for those bills, and we'll have that support this year as well.
How much forward do you look for? How excited are you about working with your colleagues?
Well, we only had a year off because we actually were in session more than the federal Congress was in 2021, but everybody looks to be in pretty good mood today, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, if you recall, they had special sessions back last year, which did extend things into the fall. But you can see both sides excited about what's on the horizon here. But there is that issue of making sure that everyone can get along to find common ground. Again, swearing in is about to take place here in the Senate, the Texas Senate, at the top of the hour, high noon, fitting that they are doing it at high noon. We are, after all, state of Texas. I want to show you also how close they are to one another. This is Senator Boris Miles' office here. Again, Senator Miles is with District 13. Hey, Gary, how you doing? Good to see you again, Gary. There's Justin Miles. That's Senator Miles' son. I mentioned, of course, about today being Family Day here because you have a lot of members of family members who are showing up for the swearing in. That's Boris Miles' office, okay? Right over here is where you have Senator Paul Betancourt's office. He's the chair of Committee on Local Government for this cycle. You see how close they are. They're talking a lot behind the scenes here, not just on the floor. They're talking a lot behind the scenes, and they're close to one another. They understand it. You have a relationship here in Austin with the Senate that is much closer than you do with regard to the House. The House is much more divided, and of course you saw that the last time around when the House Democrats took off to D.C. in July of 2021. So it will be interesting to see how the dynamics are and if there's any bad blood still from what took place in the summer of last year. Again, the swearing in takes place at high noon. The governor gets sworn in next week, so there won't be much work taking place until he's officially sworn in. What you're going to see behind the scenes, everyone basically preparing themselves. They're going to be examining their bills, basically putting the final touches on the bills they plan to introduce right away. But during the legislative session, you have bills that will suddenly appear in the middle of it, and then those bills will also get a look. So just because we're starting early on and you might not see something that's out there, keep in mind, in the Texas legislature, you have the ability to swing in some bills there in the middle or near the end that obviously will gain a lot of momentum and ultimately will get passed. But that's the very latest here in the Senate Capitol. Back to you, Andy and Lisa.
Yeah, a lot of work to get done on behalf of the people of the great state of Texas. Mario Diaz live for us inside our state's capital this morning. Thank you.